I'm Shy Silverleaf, and welcome to part 2 of the round split to flat join series covering the round split. Let's get started. Alright, the first thing you're going to do to create this little project is you're going to chain the mitt diameter, which I calculated as 29 stitches. Then you're going to Tunisian Simple Stitch for your calculated number of rounds from start to thumb base. Mine was 5 rounds. Remember, do not count your foundation round, which is the very first round that you work directly into the chain. Now, whether you work into the ridge of the chain like I did or in the top V of the chain doesn't really matter. Once you have finished this, try it on for size. Make sure it fits how you want to. If you need to readjust it, keep in mind that this particular stitch is not very stretchy, and it also needs to slide very easily over the widest part of your hand, which is around your thumb. Okay, once you're happy with your measurements, and also bear in mind that your gauge does not have to match mine exactly. This is a very forgiving project. You're going to work it all the way around until the last 2 stitches before you're ready to do your split. Now, with the round split, if you're using it in a different pattern other than these mitts, let's say a pattern that you invented yourself, what you're going to want to do is you will need to plan for your split to be 1 round higher than what you think, because the way it's hinged at the very bottom of the stitch. The top is free, so that makes it appear to be created lower than what you actually think it is. Okay? Moving on to the round split itself, you're going to work the last 2 stitches of the previous round, round 5 in my case, and the first 3 or even 4 stitches of the next row. If you're marking your round, as you go, make sure that you mark the first stitch. There you go, as you do it. Alright. Let me move my stitch marker up. Now I'm going to do 4 stitches, just because it really doesn't make any bit of difference. Now, what you're going to do is you are going to finish off the previous row, okay, just up. In my case, I'm going to finish these stitches here, leaving these stitches on the hook, and you'll see why in just a minute. So go ahead, turn it around with your second hook and second yarn. Just finish them off with the standard circular return pass, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Turn it over, make sure I don't go quite too far. And one more. We'll do it. Okay. Now, this is the finish of row 5. Correction, I went 1 too far. So let's back it up. Just sliding it off the hook and very gently sliding it out of that loop. Sliding the working yarn back on. Okay, now it is correct. Okay, I have the first 4 of round 6, what will be row 6, unworked completely on this part of the hook, and I have the finished part of round 5 over here. Now, this next part, we're going to take a locking stitch marker. You know what, let's do green. It stands out a little better. You're going to take a locking stitch marker and you're going to put it just through the last loop you made with the second yarn on the second end of the hook. Close it now. Don't have a heart attack with this. You're going to actually slide it off of the hook. Okay? Your locking stitch marker will prevent you from losing all the work that you've already done. And pull it down a little snug and just push it out of the way for now. Alright, now we're going to start working the stitches flat back and forth like you would doing regular Tunisian crochet work flat. Now remember to keep your tension nice and even. Very important. Let me get a little more yarn out. You want to tension the yarn. Don't let the yarn tension itself, because then it'll really mess up your project. Okay. There we go. Alright. Now you're going to pick up loops like you have been doing. We're going to pick up about half of them, or until it gets a little awkward to work them. And then we'll move on to the next step as soon as my yarn stops trying to add to my tension. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Oh, sorry, you'll see me periodically twitch this hand because the second end of the hook is trying to catch in my gauntlets here, and the twitch is to stop it. Alright. It's getting a little awkward to get them on, and if you look, let's fold it in half right at the split. You'll see I don't have quite half of the stitches on, but that's okay, we'll fix that. You're going to take your stitch holder and push all the stitches to the second end of the hook. Make sure this just slipped right out and is trying to split my yarn. Let me fix that really quick. Alright. Now, you're going to transfer all of these loops except for the last 3. So about to here. Let me get a little stitch marker for you, and we're going to mark that one to show where we want to stop. So all of these onto the stitch holder to make it easier for us to work into a circle. Right now this will not lay flat whatsoever, so this is the best method for doing this. Now there's a couple of different ways you can transfer the loops from your crochet hook onto your loop. You can either very gently wiggle the stitch holder in underneath the loop between the hook and the very base of the loop, which used to be my favorite method. You could either do that by looking at it from the front or turning it around and sliding it in from the back. We'll go ahead and slide these loops off so you can see it completely done, which I usually turn it around. Stop right there. Okay. Excuse me. To get the loops off the hook without the hook itself snagging the loops, what you're going to do is you're going to very gently twist your hook just a little as you're sliding them off. Now, the other way to transfer them to one or the other is actually using the same hand motions you would if they were 2 knitting needles. Basically, you're going to take the point of your stitch holder, slide it up under the loop without splitting the yarn in either method you choose, and then, oops, I just split the yarn, shame on me. Try that again. There we go. Alright, and then just slide it off the hook. You may have to wiggle the hook so that it doesn't catch. Now I'm holding on to the loops using my index fingers of both hands, pushing them up. We got 2 more loops with this finger and sliding them on with this finger. Sorry, I get left and right mixed up. So my hook finger and my holder finger. Okay, one more. Okay, go ahead and close that and just let it fall out of the way. You're going to push the loops back to the first end of your hook, pick up your first yarn, retension it, and you're going to pick up some more loops on the hook. Sorry about the scraping. Okay, I think that's a fair amount. Now we're going to take that off. And we're going to slide, once again, a few more on so that we have at least half, or perhaps 2 or 3 over half, onto the holder to make it easier for my hook to work. And pick up the other side. What is happening? Okay, the other side of the project. And this little loop doesn't... Oh, I split it, didn't I? Nope. And I think that will absolutely work. And you can check it just by very simply folding it in half. Uh-oh, I did split that last one. Lovely. Well, you can either fix it now. While you're here, you see how one part of the yarn is going up over the hook instead of around the side where it's supposed to be. Very gently set your project down so that there's no weight on either of the loops whatsoever. Very gently holding on to the other loops so that they don't fall off. Slide the hook out. Let go of it for just a second, very gently straightening it out. And then gently slide it back on and lock it. Now, you see, it's a little stretched out, but it's now right where it should be. Okay. And slide the loops back to the first end of the hook. Retension the yarn. We're going to pick up the rest of the stitches except for the very last one over here. Now, working flat, this is where our selvage edge is going to be. And usually, if you look at this little gauge swatch, there is a V right here that you work behind on the very edge. Right now, that V does not exist yet. We will add it in just a minute. So go ahead and pick up the rest of your stitches except for that last one. Make sure you didn't forget any. Go nice and slow and be very patient. You're going to end up getting things tangled. That's okay. Just undo them, fix them, and continue on. And there goes my gauntlet again. Alright, we are almost there. Okay. Now, here is the last loop and the last stitch. And what you're going to do is, there's part of the V, but normally there's an additional vertical bar back here, and you go in between the vertical bar and the V to get your selvage edge correct. However, you'll see that vertical bar, is not there yet. These two belong just to this V here. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick it up by going in between the front vertical bar and the single back vertical bar, like that. Make sure your second yarn is back out of the way so you don't accidentally pick it up. I like to pull it a little loose using my middle finger and hold it behind my work. Let me pull my tension correct. Okay. Slide the hook in, yarn over. Come on, you yarn over, pull it through one, hold on to that, pull it through two. Okay. Now, if you look, next time we go, here's the V, and there is the second vertical bar that you need to go in between to do the selvage edge like you're normally used to the rest of the way up. Okay. See, I did yarn over, chain one. Okay, so I already did the two. Sorry, lost where I was at there for a moment. Now you're going to return past flat, back, yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. We'll take care of this in just a minute. Pull through two all the way until you have 3 or 4 loops on the hook remaining, whichever makes you more comfortable. I have, let's do 4 now. Alright, now you're going to slide the loops to the second end of your hook, turn it around, try not to get your yarns tangled, and you're going to transfer these loops back onto the hook. You're going to start with just a few to help you get around this edge, around this part right here, and then you'll slide the rest on and you'll finish working to the beginning of your row. So, transferring it on, you could do one of 2 ways. You could either, using your any finger actually, to hold on to the first loop, slide your hook in very gently, wiggle it back in, and just keep wiggling it in down the row. This is the first method. And the second one is doing, once again, transferring, doing slip stitches and knitting, where this time, if you're this-handed, sliding it one to the other. Alright, I think that's quite enough. Then slide it back to the first hook, retension your yarn, get that out of the way. Continue yarn over, pull through 2 until once again you have a few, 3 or 4 left on your hook. Slide it back to the second end of your hook, and now we're going to transfer, if I could speak correctly, the rest of your loops back onto your hook. Now the reason that I wiggle my crochet hook back and forth is so that it doesn't get caught on things. And sometimes you got to push down the bottom part of the loop. If you find trying to wiggle the hook in so that it comes in back, you may find it easier, the back of the stitch. Remember, this is the right side, this is the wrong side. You may find that it's easier to slip your hook in the front of the stitch. Remember, we're working from the back, and slide it off. Find a method that works for you and go with it. Not everybody's going to slip the loops on the same. Okay, we're done with that for now, so I'm just going to not bother to close it and set it aside. Push the loops back to the first part of the hook and finish your return pass flat to the very beginning of what's now your row. You stopped working in the rounds and we're now working flat, so I'm going to call them rows instead of rounds, or at least the flat portion, all the way back. Now we still have this pesky second yarn here that we need to deal with. So what you need to do is just slide this loop, make it nice and big so that it doesn't go anywhere. Set that to the side. Now, with this, now that we've done the selvage edge here, we're done with this for now. So what you want to do is make a nice long tail. Long tail is so much easier to weave in than a smaller one. A smaller one generally requires needle and thread, and I find that well beyond irritating. So better to have too much than not enough. Go ahead, snip it. I like to tie a knot in the ends of my yarn so that they don't unravel on me for future use. And as you saw, I let the second working yarn just fall beside me. We'll use that in another episode. Lost my train of thought there. All right, now let's get the first yarn out of the way, and we're working with just the second yarn. You're going to loosen up the loop that's attached to your locking stitch marker. Now I leave the locking stitch marker on until the very last second so I can see exactly which one. Reach through your loop, grab your tail, pull it through, snug it down. Go ahead and remove your locking stitch marker and pull it very nice and tight. You're going to reach up through your mitt, grab your second tail, and pull it totally out of the way. And we are done with that. Now, it took me a while to figure out what to do with that second tail, because when working in the round, you saw we work with two yarns, but working flat, we only work with one. Now, originally I had it carrying up the selvage edge, but it made for a very fat, very ugly selvage edge, which wasn't so bad when you're making something like a mitt. And you're going to come back and you're going to actually work off the hole, which I did attaching the thumb here, which covers up the selvage edge. However, something like these gauntlets where the selvage edge was exposed, it was just absolutely awful. It's best if you do exactly what I did, finish it off, and tuck it in to weave in later. Alright. Now, got to pull out some more yarn and detangle it. Give me just a moment. There we go. Alright, continuing on. My yarn will cooperate. Boy, this really doesn't like me right now. Okay, we're good now. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up the loops just like you normally did, working flat. Remember, keep your tension nice and even. And now, don't forget to mark your first stitch in each row. Oh, there we go again. There we go. Alright. Pick up the stitches until it becomes too awkward to pick them up. Now this time, now that I don't have to worry about that in the back, I'm going to actually pick up over half of the stitches, really scrunching it around. Until I cannot possibly get, see how it's bunching up here? Possibly get another stitch, probably one more. This is getting downright awkward because this is trying to pull backwards while this is moving forwards. So, push the stitches on the second hook using your favorite method. Transfer all but 3 or 4. Do your best not to split them. Now, the more you have on here, like I said, I have over half. It makes it a little awkward trying to slip them on. Just be patient, work slowly the first few times, and then once you've got the hang of it, then you can work a little faster. Be patient and slow, and don't panic if you split a stitch. Just very gently fix it and continue on. And you'll be fine. I think we'll leave. Oh yeah, transfer one more. Now if you drop a stitch, don't panic. Try and rescue it if you can. Uh-oh. Looks like I was trying to split a stitch there. There we go. Alright, drop that out of the way. Push the stitches, the loops, to the first end of the hook and continue on around. Now, if you're working a different project or a project of your own, once you go from round to flat, if you actually get it high enough, like for instance this little mock-up of a dress or a top that I did, if you look at the back, I worked it in the round up until here, where it splits for a person to actually put it on, is where I did the round split. This, if it was full size, would actually unfold enough that I could use a regular Tunisian crochet hook to work it flat, or one with a cable on it, which would be a lot easier than continuing with the hook and stitch holder method for such a large project. This is a small project, so it probably won't get big enough that we can use one of these. Now, if you transfer it to one of these, make sure it's the exact same size as the double-ended crochet hook that you're working, so that you don't change your gauge as you go. Alright, continue around all the way until the very last stitch, which will be your selvage edge. And this time, nope, didn't do anything wrong. Okay. This time, you're going to work it like you usually do. If you turn it sideways, there's your V. You turn it front facing you, here's the side of your V, and there is the second vertical bar, and you're going to go right in between those two. Yarn over, pull through once, yarn over, pull through twice, and then return past flat. Sorry about that. Return past flat back until you have 3 or 4 loops on the hook. Try not to get anything that's on your hand caught in the second end of the hook while you're at it. There we go. Then transfer your loops back onto your hook in your preferred method. Nice and slow. Almost there. And I'm just going to go ahead and try and do all of them. Oh, come on, get on there. Okay, just making sure I didn't split it. Alright. See how it makes it a little hard? The more stitches you have going around, especially around your side here, okay, the harder it is to slide this back and forth. So slide it back to the first end of your hook, retension your yarn. I'm going to go ahead and bunch this up, which will bunch this up and make it easier for me to work on this end. Yarn over, pull through two. You'll see this relax as I come around. I have not changed my tension whatsoever, even stuffing as many loops as I did on the hook. All the way back to the end. Now at this point in the mitt or whatever other project you're doing, if you need to stop it and say go run pick up the kids or whatnot, get all the way to the end. That way you can just loosen up this loop and you're good to go. And that is it as far as the round split is concerned. One more thing before I sign off. Before the next project, make sure you do thumb base to top webbing calculation. Work all of those rows flat until you reach the one short of where you think you will need your round split to go. Thanks for watching part 2 of this series. Coming up next is part 3, flat join. This is Shy Silverleaf, and I'll see you with Hook at the Ready.